Greetings, family. Welcome back. I appreciate you returning to listen to try to figure some things out that are going on in the world. I got my lab coat on today because I think I got a new disease that I can describe to explain what's going on with this ORANGEchurian Candidate and the quest for Snowmanastan. Perhaps you don't understand the title, but I'll break it down for you because we have some things that are going on for me personally. Look, if you are putting my life at risk with nuclear war and weapons and jailing innocent people and attacking me, then I have a problem with that. I think you should also have a problem with that. If you can extract a president from another country and his wife, and if you could just now start to say, I want to claim Canada, Greenland, Norway, there's something going on with that mindset. If you want to now have mass immigrant attacks on innocent people and you have ICE agents acting like slave patrols, you are a dangerous element. So we need to go to the lab to figure this out because we can't continue to exist in this kind of manner. So imagine the U.S. got bombed. Right now it's an isolated location there in North America, so it's isolated. But imagine if America got bombed. I mean, what would you do? Would you still be watching sports? Would you still be doing your social media? Would you still be, I don't know, watching comedy programs? And what would you be doing? I mean, suppose a UFO came down. What would you do? Can't be normal anymore. So we have to explain what's going on in the world to try to break this down. I say ORANGEchurian Candidate because I'm focusing on the Manchurian Candidate movie. You need to go look at it if you have not. There's been many remakes of it. Even Denzel Washington played in one. Talked about it before in another video, but I want you to understand the importance of this because we have some things happening in the world that should not be going on. But it's a certain mentality and mindset that's creating this scenario. So I don't even want to show the person's picture, don't even call the person's name, but you know what I'm saying, ORANGEchurian Candidate. We have to erase that mindset, but it's difficult if you don't understand how it's being played. That person was put in place to ensure that these things would be happening. So with the pick of the ORANGEchurian Candidate to be both 45th and 47th pick to lead this experiment, that's all it is, experiment, because it hasn't really worked the way it's supposed to be, like a melting pot. It is clear undertaking that something sinister has occurred. So there has now been an ushering in of white supremacist mindset on a global level. So this is a problem. It's problematic because you have then people following along with this psychopathic behavior. I got the lab coat on. Again, I'm in the lab today. You know, I've worked with animals. I've studied hormones and behavior, studied it in hamsters and rats. I studied the way that these chemicals have influence on social behavior. So I got some ways to discuss this. There's a rodent called the lemming. People say it's like a myth. They don't really just commit mass suicide. I'll go over this, but you got a psychopath and you got people following what he's saying. The executive branch of the government is going along. The judicial branch of the government is going along. Legislative, the billionaires, poor people, rich people, MAGA followers, mentally blind, are just going along. And again, you're jeopardizing our health, our livelihood, nuclear war, health, you name it. We are in trouble. And you got people just following along and you try to wonder why. What is a lemming? Lemmings, again, these rodents, I'm saying from rodents to man, how we look at how animals act and we look at what's going on in human behavior. Lemmings have become the subject of a widely popular misconception that they are driven to commit mass suicide when they migrate by jumping off cliffs or drowning in bodies of water. Now, when I say this mass suicide, you know darn well all these things that are going on in the executive branch of this government is creating havoc all over the world. What is the mindset where you want to now commit suicide and create it where everybody else has a problem because you have some issues? So we got some things to talk about. It is true that the local population of some lemmings fluctuates. Contrary to the myth, it is not a deliberate mass suicide in which animals voluntarily choose to die, but rather a result of their migratory behavior. So what's going on with all these white people following along with a psychopath? Well, we don't know why. You got to ask them, but you know darn well it's committing suicide because we're killing ourselves, killing the world. We're supposed to live in peace and harmony, not try to destroy and attack other people. There's a certain mindset that creates that. So, driven by strong biological urges, some species of lemmings may migrate in large groups when population density becomes too great. So, in this case, we're looking at European or white mentality, thinking that they're now depleting and not having as many. So, they got to do whatever they got to do to survive. So, it's like when rich white people or people got a lot of money and they're on the deathbed, they might just do crazy things when they're dying. And that's what we have going on in this world. Thus, the unexplained fluctuations in the population of Norwegian lemmings help give rise to the popular stereotype of the suicidal lemmings. Well, we got suicidal white people. We got suicidal people that are not even just white people, just people appeared all over the planet, not working together. That's not even logical to be in a global capacity and you're not going to work with other people. And there is actually another animal called the vole, V-O-L-E. This vole has a behavior that people say could be, depending upon where it's living, in the prairie or in the mountains, it could be monogamous or polygamous. There are certain receptors in the brain, like vasopressin receptors, that are elevated or diminished that cause that animal to be more in a parental mode of thinking. That's animals. That's rodents. I'm not trying to be anthropomorphic, saying exactly what's happening in rodents or animals is exactly what happens in humans, but they give us an example. So you now got this psychopath on the prowl. It's like an animal type behavior to want to take and get. So Snowmanastan, they're trying to create a world with just white people. So rather than just Snowmanistan, they're getting white mantopia. Don't want any other people around. That's a sickness. That's xenophobic mentality when you only want to have and only want yours and you're fearing everybody else. The cause, Caucasian Stina. They want all these places. Snowmanistan, white mantopia, and Caucasian Stina. And now you got the disunited states of white people. Because that's all this system is trying to create, an environment where white people are thriving. Any other entity, attack. That is not life. Something's got to be going on to create this psychopathic prowl. So I say, it's an autoimmune disease. When you say autoimmune, that means anything that's attacking your body and it shouldn't be. Multiple sclerosis, they say, is an autoimmune disease. For some reason, the myelin is destroying itself in the person's body and they have those movement problems, nervous system disorders. So autoimmune, the body starts attacking itself. So we have an autoimmune disease here on the social level. I call it MassaKiller. It's a mental disease that destroys the social fabric of a cohesive unit. It is manifested in the psychopathic nature of a mindset that has been groomed to falsely believe the individual is superior. It is deadly because it is a delusional state of thinking that is righteous, and the reality is death to the host and all of human nature. Those with symptoms of the disease only abide by greedy people rules. Now, you know darn well during slavery times, on any way that the European tried to justify slavery, they were making up diseases, saying that there's a problem with black people. Drapetomania, you may have heard of the term. Black people on the plantation being in bondage and they're running away. And the white people said, oh, they got a disease called drapetomania. What makes them run away? They got food, they got housing. What's wrong with them? So here we now have a situation where we got to describe what's wrong with these Europeans acting psychopathic, following a psychopath, and ruining the whole world. It's fatal. People with this disease once thought they were masters of the universe, but only being on the planet to rule from the Greco-Roman world until now is only 2,665 years on the planet. This is emotionally devastating because the decline has been swift. Ancient melanin-dominant civilizations throughout the world history have existed for much longer times than this impending inevitable decline of white civilization. They call it civilization because really it's barbarism. Anytime you want to go attack people, take people, extract people, that's something wrong with your mentality. Melanin recessive people have developed this autoimmune disease because they developed into the massa, thought they're master, or the master, thought they were master of others. But it was centralized on a flawed state in the human character. That is, thinking of self and not others leads to MassaKiller symptoms. Disease characteristics. Greed rules the cognitive state. Want to take and pillage and plunder. went on down in Venezuela, and that oil does not belong to the people who went ahead and tried to extract that president and took those. They don't. That's not white people's stuff. That's Venezuelan. That's those people in that sovereign nation. So greedy people rules. Greed rules the mindset. Death to others is uncaring. You saw what happened in the whole Gaza situation with the Palestinian people. Everybody watched, still watching. Death to others is uncaring. Material and things are the only quest. Oil, mining, resources, lithium, gold. All those are things that are driving the mindsets. When you watch movies like Avatar, watch movies like, I guess, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. All these movies are looking at, again, the European looking for resources and taking. Also, a false belief permeates reasoning. Thinking that you're great, that's delusional. It's a false belief. But that reasoning is what's creating the problem throughout the world, because there's no supreme white people. There's no supreme black people. There's no supreme anybody. It's just people. But a mindset in a delusional state creates that. A consistent mental state of erasure. I don't want to talk about the past. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, get rid of that stuff. Don't bring up the past. Don't talk about history. Don't talk about what we did to our people to extract them from their culture and their history and demoralize them like Freddy Krueger in history. Don't talk about this stuff. Erasure. That's what we have going on in the Project 2025 and what's happening with history right now. Erase it. And then a suspected dominant linked genetic state is triggered when the false superior junk DNA gene is activated. What am I saying about that? So, in genetics, you have sex-linked, recessive-linked, dominant-linked disorders. This is the dominant one because you can see in many people, when you speak about gentrification, you can see in many people that there's a mindset that they should always be in control. They should always be in power. Anybody else other than white in power creates a problem. So, does it happen in childhood? Young adults? Middle age? When is this triggered? Well, from the educational system, from the social development, so how the media portrays things, this can be triggered and activate something called the junk DNA gene. So you have more junk DNA than you have your regular DNA that we know what it does in the body. So when we say junk DNA, there's something in there that triggers the person to be thinking that it's okay to be psychopathic, take from other people, and be a MassaKiller. So let me now look at some books. You know what we do. We give a breakdown. We give some books that can talk about some of these topics of discussion. So let's look at some books. So the books are critical. I mean, there's many books to read, but I'm just sharing with you some things in books you have not heard of or seen before. But just in general media. I got this brochure in the mail from JCPenney, and I want you to think about that erasure mentality I just told you about. Erasing people. So, front cover. White man, white woman. Open it up. White woman, another white woman. Then you got a black woman, a white woman. So then you got over here, I think maybe a Latino, Hispanic woman. You got white man, black man. Then you got a family that don't seem to be all together. And then you got black woman, white man. Black man's always by himself. Black man's by himself, so the portrayal is to erase them, get rid of them. So in all of our pieces of media, you start seeing things happening where you're erasing people. There's a book called The World Turned Inside Out, Settler Colonialism as a Political Idea by Lorenzo Veracini. So if you ever read any of Gerald Horne's work or about settler colonialism, he's talking about the same thing, but how these people have gone throughout the world with this political idea, but it doesn't work because you're dismantling, disrupting, and you're creating havoc in other people's society. So it's a dying problem, a dying scenario. And that's what this author is sharing in their book, talking about how people have gone around settling in other places, and the colonial mentality has destroyed the opportunity for people to be who are there to thrive properly. Beyond the settler colonialism, and getting rid of all slavery, and then we move to the Reconstruction era. Good book. Reconstruction, Voices from America's First Great Struggle for Racial Equality by Brooke Simpson. And this was written actually 2018. So this book is describing stories, 2018, stories of what was going on during the Reconstruction period and how it was dismantled. So we've been here before. I mean, we've been here before. We've tried to build, and you got white people trying to attack and take. The book by David, I think Zucchini, called Wilmington's Lie. How in Wilmington, that was the first coup that was actually happening in the United States, Wilmington, North Carolina. So the Reconstruction era, we go back decades, and we look at where we're at today, where people still don't want to reconstruct and make it equal for other people. So you move from Reconstruction, start talking about time periods that people are still attacking us. J. Edgar Hoover had his own personal problems in terms of his, I guess, sexuality and also his background being potentially related to black people. How the FBI aided and abetted the rise of white Christian nationalism. This is by Lerone Martin. That's why we have the problem today and how we developed the Tea Party, the MAGA movement, and all this. So they created this white Christian nationalism. Billy Graham to, I don't know, Kenneth Copeland, all those people push a certain mentality that look at all non-white people as bad people. So this is a good book to understand the mentality that create things that the government then impacted us. Distorted Truths. This is from African World Info Systems, the publisher for many of Dr. Amos Wilson's books. This is written by Damani Ejikum. So the Distorted Truths, the bastardization of African cosmology. So this is written, actually, it's an old school book, 2012, I believe. So this, first edition is 2012. So it's really discussing how all these lies have been created, and the brother goes into more deep discussion on how it is that civilizations have been manipulated, and today we need to rectify those things. So again, distorted truths. Somebody creates that mentality. That's the MassaKiller. So the MassaKiller also created this scenario where you have democracy being dismantled. So subtle tools, the dismantling of American democracy from the war on terror to Donald Trump. So that 9/11 incident ushered in the Patriot Act. And so Karen Greenberg is breaking down how it led us to this state right now where people want this authoritarian dictator, the MassaKiller, the ORANGEchurian Candidate, to run things. This is 2022 that this came out. So a good book. Talk about the dismantling of American democracy. You're seeing it now. My life is being threatened. Therefore, I must speak up to make sure that my people, my children, my ancestors, my genes continue on and perpetuate rather than having someone take out all that we've struggled for and fought for. There's reasons why information is not being put out properly. Many people don't even know who Edward Snowden is. Talk to students today, they don't know anything about the names of people that have been in the media. Jamal Khashoggi from, Saudi Arabia, how he was dismantled in the Turkish embassy. People don't know names. This book called Dark Mirror, Edward Snowden and the American Surveillance State by Barton Gellman. Pretty good book. It's just documenting the story that he went through, because Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, again, names that people don't know, people who try to tell us that there's something going on with us being tracked. Movie with Will Smith, I think Gene Hackman, called Enemy of State. Showing you right there how you can be tracked, cameras, your cell phone, and all that. So Dark Mirror, Edward Snowden, still alive. I think, don't want to even say where he is, but he's still alive. He's there trying to explain to people that the government may not be your best friend. And the last book I'll just talk about is, as we fast forward to then making things more contemporary, The Steal, the attempt to overturn the 2020 election and the people who stopped it. It's by Mark Bowden and Matthew Teague, two white scholars who are trying to break down what happened with that, saying that people were manipulating the voting, but that wasn't the case. This is written in 2022 also. So these books are more contemporary about what's going on, but we need to study history to explain why we've gotten to this point and People are falling off the cliff following a psychopath and don't even know why to follow. But our lives are directly impacted, and I'm going to speak up about that. You need to speak up about that. We need to understand what's really going on, and we'll be back to find out how we can rectify this. Thank you for listening, and we will be in touch.